I mean, let's just roll right into it. What are your impressions watching this 1950s suspense picture?
The first 10 minutes dragged. From that point on, once about 15 minutes in, I was starting to get intrigued by the same stuff that Jeffrey was intrigued about.
This is the apartment of a man named Jeffrey. Right now, his world has shrunk down to the size of this window. And you won't be able to take your eyes off the glowing beauty of Grace Kelly in this story of a romance shadowed by the terror of a horrifying secret.
My only knowledge of this is through The Simpsons.
Yeah, it's Alfred Hitchcock time, baby. All right, Tig, I gave you a difficult challenge this time around because we went all the way back to 1954 for a movie directed by Alfred Hitchcock starring Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly, Rear Window. I mean, let's just roll right into it. What are your impressions watching this 1950s suspense picture?
The first 10 minutes dragged. From that point on, once about 15 minutes in, I was starting to get intrigued by the same stuff that Jeffrey was intrigued about, like being stuck inside and have nothing to do but just kind of people watch.
Yeah, the idea of sort of being just stuck inside and the only thing you can do is observe the outside world is really kind of fitting for right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely hit home watching it.
So for anyone who hasn't seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a while and you forgot, Rear Window is about Jimmy Stewart's character, Jeff, who is a photographer who gets injured on the job. He's laid up in a cast in a wheelchair, so he is stuck in his apartment. He spends his time just sort of observing the other neighbors in his apartment complex with the telephoto lens of his camera. One of his neighbors, he begins to suspect might have murdered his wife. So the movie then is Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly watching this other neighbor, trying to determine if he actually did or did not kill his wife. And that's how Rear Window unfolds and plays out is just them watching the neighbors trying to figure out this murder mystery. One of the things that kind of rewards repeated viewings is that it's not just about the central suspense story concerning the neighbor and the neighbor's wife and figuring out whether he did or did not kill his wife. It's all the little stories and all the surrounding apartments where it really kind of comes to life.
After watching it, it was all about the main part of the story, but as I sat on it for a little bit, it was cool to think back and be like, oh, the newlyweds next door and the woman downstairs who's having dating problems as well.
Miss Lonely Heart.
Yeah, Miss Lonely Heart and the dog and I found that all, even the bar across the street was interesting, which I also found amazing that the bar across the street out of the entire set, because the set was amazing. The fact that it was all filmed, they never move. It's all from that one shot. I loved that they had to have the bar across the street filled with people all the time for all those shots.
So in order to talk about this set, because it was an incredible achievement, creating this set and the stories behind its creation and the filming and all that. So in order to discuss that, I have a special surprise.
Oh my goodness.
So welcome aboard, Jim McDevitt.
Much. How are you guys?
So for people who don't know, Jim is an old friend of mine, and he is also the person that I co-authored the 3 Alfred Hitchcock books that you see behind me, or I'm sorry, the 2, A Year of Hitchcock, 52 Weeks with the Master of Suspense, as well as Hitchcock's Villains, Murders, Maniacs, and Mother Issues. We also co-hosted a Alfred Hitchcock podcast like 10 years ago, like early podcasting days. So Jim, Tig was just commenting on the set for Rear Window and how impressive it was that he was mentioning the bar behind the set, how it was always packed with people and how, gosh, it must have been so amazing during the filming to always have to have activity going on there. So as you know better than almost anyone, the set from Rear Window and the stories sort of involved with it are actually really, really impressive. So why don't you tell us a little about that?
Well, yeah, it really is one of the the more fascinating sets in movie history when you think about it. The entire apartment complex was real, and the apartments that were shown throughout the film, they're fully decorated and, you know, as if people were living in them, and it really added a sense of realism to what Jimmy Stewart's character was looking at as he gazed out his rear window throughout the entire film.
They wanted to build it so tall, but it was going to be too tall for the actual studio where they were filming it. So they actually had to dig down 2 or 3 floors down into the ground.
Jesus, really?
In order to get enough height so that they can build it enough. And according to the story, some of the actors basically just lived in the like between takes and all that, just all day. They just hung out and ate and slept and all that in those apartments.
That makes sense. I mean, I would have done that probably if I was one of the actors. So like I said, I kind of knew the story a little bit from The Simpsons, of all places. So I was pleasantly surprised at the ending because I was completely wrong about what I thought the ending was going to be, because I based it on The Simpsons Flanders ending.
Okay.
So I just assumed that's what it was going to be like. So I was very glad to see that it was not.
I'm a Diddly-erdler!
I also really, really liked Grace Kelly, who I've never seen in a movie, but knew, obviously.
She's terrific in this. Yeah, she really
she's
is.
so good at it.
I could get you a dozen assignments tomorrow. Fashions, portraits. When I don't laugh, I could do it.
That's what I'm afraid of.
When I was first watching it, that she was just going to be the person who's constantly telling him he's wrong and he needs to stop. So when she starts to get involved in it and goes beyond, like actually becomes more involved than he even wants her to, I thought that was really amazing. That was a lot of fun.
Let's start from the beginning again, Jeff. Tell me everything you saw.
And she actually sets up some really great suspense later on when she's the one who's like, I'm going to go into the apartment.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like just seeing her climbing up the fire escape and actually finding a way in the window. Very tense scene there.
And those later scenes when she goes into the neighbor's apartment. The neighbor, of course, played by Raymond Burr. Those are really great scenes and really show you why Hitchcock came to be called the master of suspense. It's not like there's a lot of fast cuts or tense action, and he's not using all these very modern tricks to kind of get you on the edge of your seat. He just sets up this situation, and one thing that he really likes to do is to give the audience information that the characters don't have. The audience recognizes the jeopardy that Grace Kelly's in, but she doesn't. And then Jeff, Jimmy Stewart's character, and Thelma Ritter, they see what's about to happen and they're freaking out, and we start to freak out alongside them because we're like, oh shit, she's gonna get caught.
Yeah, my wife was actually yelling out loud during that scene, like, no.
That's one that you can imagine what that would have been like watching that with with a full theater in 1954.
Yeah.
One of the things that's interesting to me about Rear Window is that it's very much a picture for and about audiences, right? Because voyeurism and the idea of people watching is such an integral part of the movie. And isn't that what you're doing when you go to the movies anyway, is like you're people watching? And throughout this whole thing, Jeff is there with his binoculars watching people the whole time.
Yeah, you're in the room with him the whole time. So you're doing the exact same thing, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting with when he in the scene where he falls asleep, the guy across the hall like leaves with a woman. So the whole time I'm thinking, I know he didn't kill her. But then at the end, I was completely wrong. He just threw that goddamn thing at the audience to throw like us off track.
Yeah, because I guess he wants to give you the idea that like to make you question whether or not Jeff is plunging down a rabbit hole. So for a little while, you think maybe he has just been cooped up for too damn long.
Yeah, because we've all done that. How many times have you looked out your window or saw something weird and you're like, no, but you kind
of literally yesterday.
Really?
But one of the neighbors in the back, they must have been burning something in the backyard because they had a really large fire.
Oh boy!
And my wife pointed out, and I look, and I was like, "That's not a fire pit fire. Like there's like 5-6 foot high flames, and there's nobody in the yard." And for a minute there, I was like, "I think they might have a fire. We might have to call the fire department." And then I saw someone in one of their windows looking down like at the fire, and they were calm. So I was like,
There's
"Okay,
like a body in there."
It must be. Yeah, right. I knew I wanted to throw a Hitchcock movie at you for this series, and I debated several different options. In fact, Jim and I talked one night about about that because I was asking for his advice. But the thing with Hitchcock is he directed over 50 pictures, and if you ask somebody what his best picture is, you can ask 5-6 different people and you'll get 5-6 different answers because he has so many that are considered landmark classics.
You could ask 10 people and get 10 different answers.
Between this,
really,
North by Northwest, Psycho, The Birds, Notorious, Dial M for Murder, is a number of others.
You haven't mentioned two of my probably 3 favorite Hitchcock movies, which are Shadow of a Doubt and Strangers on Train.
That is from Shadow of a Doubt. Also, that was a gift from Jim.
I still say North by Northwest is my absolute favorite, but Strangers on a Train is amazing, and so, as is Shadow of a Doubt. I just love those movies. They're just completely timeless.
So Tig, did you feel as if the acting was modern enough for you? I know sometimes some folks who don't have a lot of exposure to older movies, sometimes the acting in older movies kind of gets to them. Did this hit that point, or was this already modern enough for you that you were fine with it?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. It wasn't Jason and the Argonauts, stage acting kind of feel.
Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly and Thelma Ritter are all very natural.
You said the neighbor was the murderer was
Raymond Burr, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that was Raymond Burr. That's weird. Like, even thinking that it still doesn't look like him in my head, but I guess I'm thinking of an older Raymond Burr.
Yeah, that would make sense. Probably like 20 years later. In addition to the main story, which is sort of the mystery, people who are watching it for the first time should look out for, or for the second or third time, because it does really reward repeated viewings, is to watch all the little side stories, all the little sub stories. The single guy who's always entertaining people in the upper right apartment, the voluptuous woman who's always has guys over.
Miss Torso. And her husband.
Yes, Miss Torso.
Her husband comes back from the military.
Yeah, and he's just like this little guy. Even though she always has guys over, it's always very chaste. They're clearly trying to pursue her, but there's nothing going on. She's just sort of entertaining, and then they leave. There's nothing happening, though. It's not until her little pipsqueak husband gets home that she's like all over him. She's like, oh, yeah, finally. That you pointed out earlier, the newlyweds and sort of that arc that plays out.
Yeah.
But if you told me you quit your job, we wouldn't have gotten married.
There's a lot of really fun little stories that play out over the course of this movie that are great.
It did take me a while to warm up to Jimmy Stewart.
Oh yeah,
his character. And in the beginning, I kind of thought he was just kind of a jerk.
A jerk for being a voyeur, or
no? I think just a jerk when he starts going off on his girlfriend's too perfect before you meet her. He's like, oh, she just wouldn't be able to live my lifestyle. I got this traveling the world in a suitcase and blah blah blah. When he was being rude in the beginning, I thought I took it for face value, not realizing that the dynamic of their relationship was they're just busting each other's balls basically back and forth. I didn't know they were playing with each other.
Yes.
And it took a little time because in my head I have this is an old movie, and they didn't used to kid around back then. This is like and then it clicked and I realized like, oh, they're just busting each other's chops.
I actually really love their relationship in the movie. It's probably my favorite relationship of all the Hitchcock movies. It is very light. It's kind of funny. Jimmy Stewart's character, Jeff, is kind of grumpy because obviously he's a photographer, but he can't work. His leg is busted and all that. And I really love Grace Kelly's character because initially you think she's going to be one of these sort of upper crust socialites that really all she does is like bounce around to parties and she's going to be kind of an airhead. But it turns out that she's a ton of fun.
Show's over for tonight. Preview of coming attractions.
Even though she's apparently very wealthy and all the rest, she's trying to like drag him out of his shell and be like, come on, let's live a little life. Let's do some stuff. Yeah, once the dynamic of their relationship clicks, it's really enjoyable to watch. And then when you throw in Thelma Ritter.
Every man's ready for marriage when the right girl comes along.
Oh, she's all right.
What'd you do, have a fight?
No.
Father loading up the shotgun?
What?
She's really wonderful in this.
Yeah.
And if you want to see a couple other Hitchcock films with Grace Kelly, there's also Dial M for Murder and To Catch a Thief, all made within like a 2-year period.
I just want to say, Jim, thanks so much for popping in with us.
Sure.
I appreciate it. And
thanks for having me.
I'm glad that we were able to expose Tig to his first bit of classic cinema.
Yeah,
is great.
yeah, definitely a good way to hop into it, and Eric will hook you up with any more if you want to see some more. So
Yeah, I'm
you
sure I
should do
will
that.
be now that the door's been opened.
All right, cool.
Absolutely. For anyone who enjoyed this discussion, for our Patreon folks exclusively, Jim and I did a Hitchcock podcast over a decade ago, and on our Patreon, you will be able to get the full audio of our episode on Rear Window for Patreon subscribers. In the meantime, if you want more Hitchcock discussion, you could check out the book that Jim and I wrote, Alfred Hitchcock, 52 Weeks with the Master of Suspense, available in both hardcover and soft cover, as well as...
It's actually called A Year of Hitchcock.
A Year of Hitchcock, 52 Weeks with the Master of Suspense, as well as Hitchcock's Villains, Murders, Maniacs, and Mother Issues. Once again, Jim, thanks much. I appreciate you dropping in.
My pleasure.
Thanks,
My pleasure. All right, you guys take care.
So there you have it. Rear Window. I'm really happy that we were able to go Hitchcock with this, and I was a little worried because it's an older picture. So I'm glad you ended up enjoying it.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, old or not, the movie's well done. It's enjoyable, right? I mean,
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, and hopefully other people out there who are following along with us, who maybe haven't jumped in with a lot of older pictures, will end up feeling the same way, and maybe be a little more open to exploring older cinema.
yeah, exactly. Why not? What else you got to do? We're all stuck inside.
That's a good point. So all right,
But you know what
take
that
us-
means.
Well, I'm both excited and scared.
So this week, you're going to be watching the 2008 Swedish horror sort of movie, Let the Right One In.
Cool. All right, then I will check that out, and I will circle back to you in a couple days then.
Excellent. So if you enjoyed this show, maybe leave a like, subscribe, but most importantly, leave a comment down below.
We want to hear your thoughts about Rear Window and Alfred Hitchcock movies in general.
Check out our Patreon, Nerd Out With Me, to help support us and, get some extra bonus stuff along the way.
Including this time, a full podcast episode about Rear Window.
Thanks for hanging out at the movie club.
If you want to find out how you can win yourself a paperback copy of Hitchcock's Villains, Murderers, Maniacs, and Mothers... No, that's not the book we're giving away, so that was wrong. If you want to win yourself a copy of A Year of Hitchcock, 52 Weeks with the Master of Suspense, just leave a comment below on the YouTube video about Rear Window or Alfred Hitchcock in general. We will select a winner from the comments below and send you a copy of this book, co-authored by me, as well as with Jim McDevitt, who is just a guest on this show. So again, leave a comment below about Alfred Hitchcock movies, and you might win a copy of A Year of Hitchcock.
Woo!